This is what if Deku was morph or had morph's powers. Let's get into it. Guys, basically pit simple. I'm gonna be grinding these next 2 days on YouTube videos and giving you guys a crap ton of content back to back to back. Basically, I'm also gonna be dropping videos every other day. So a Monday to Wednesday to Thursday, I'll be giving you guys videos throughout the entire week. So I'm gonna be doing that all summer because I'm not gonna overwhelm you guys with videos every single day because like who's going to be binge watching my channel that much? I'm gonna give you guys a video one day, next day, give you enough time to watch that video, then the next day I'll drop another video. But yeah, I'm about to drop some gaming videos this week, and I'm about to drop 2 new what ifs, and also continuing about 2 other what ifs people have been asking and begging continuations for. But let's just dive right into this fanfiction. What if Deku was morph? Now, I'm going to be bringing back ships because I've been off my game lately. I haven't been doing any type of ships or any type of relationships or any type of anything like that. I will be going more into depth about relationships and actually going better in between scenes because I just do more narration, but I'm going to be going more into like scenes and how they talk to each other and everything like that, like I've done for my what if Deku had magic what if. And that's a what if I'm going to be continuing about next week and maybe this week. But yeah, let's dive right into this fanfiction, like I said earlier. Now, what would happen if Deku had Morph's powers? How would this affect the My Hero Academia fandom, and how would it affect and change the world as we know it? Let's dive right into this fanfiction. So what would happen is we start our story off with Izuku as a child. Izuku would have been a late bloomer, and we would start our story off with Deku at the park. Bakugo would have been picking on another girl, a pink-skinned girl, as he would have been bullying her, saying that you look, well, like a monster, saying that your horns are pathetic and disgusting. And in this universe, Bakugo would have been kind of a favoritist when it came to people that had mutation quirks that made them look like more like a monster or like a demon or something like that. They didn't have the same skin complexion. Like he wouldn't be racist against like black people or anything like that. Anybody that wasn't Japanese, but he would be racist towards people that had super distinct mutation type quirks. Characters like that look like Hellboy or Nightcrawler, characters that had really like defining traits with their quirk. Like characters like, let's say, Tokiyami that had a bird head. So stuff like that. So what would happen is Bakugo would have been bullying on this girl, as Deku would have stepped in trying to save the girl, saying to stop now, Kachan. This isn't what a hero does. You're being a horrible person right now. As Bakugo would have gone on about how, get out my way, Deku, you quirkless wannabe nobody, as he would have started to get on Deku. Now Deku, it would have been about a year since Deku's quirk should have emerged. Deku being about 5 years old, and this whole story taking place a little bit later in continuity, them all being about 5.5 years old. As Deku would have tried to stop Kachan, but Kachan would have just thrown an explosion right in Deku's face. Deku, in this split second, Bakugo would have actually been a lot more pissed off in this situation because Deku tried to step in. As the explosion would have popped off and would have started to, go crazy, Bakugo losing a little bit of control, and it being a hot, sweaty day, Bakugo throwing a lot more explosion than he should have, as it would have blown off Deku's head. Everybody in the park would have been completely shocked, especially the girl, her screaming her face off, as slowly they would have started to freak out, but them realizing that Deku started to twitch. His body started to move, and they started hearing crackling noises like fire being made. And then they started seeing more bones being popped out of Deku's spinal cord that was left behind after the explosion, as a whole skull would have started to regenerate, eyeballs, muscle fibers, and everything of sorts, hair, skin, eyeballs, teeth, everything started to regenerate together, and Deku's skin starting to change. If they would have looked closer, seen that Deku had white, pale skin, like completely white skin, like a piece of paper, like more skin. And he would have had white out pupils, and he would have had white, blackish hair, like white hair that was like glowing-ish, as he would have been like completely white. His eyebrows, his eyes, his eyeballs, his skin, it all being a pale color white. As Zuko would have looked around, him having the same type of vision, nothing really feeling different about him, but him looking at his skin, him starting to freak out a little bit. As Kacha went a little closer, saying, you freak. As he would have thrown another explosion at Deku, but Deku in that split second, thinking about his idol, thinking about someone that could help him in the situation, thinking about someone that could save him, anybody. As a huge crack, and, well, next thing you know, Deku was All Might. As Deku would have grabbed the explosion with minimal to no effort, as he would have chucked Bakugo's little ass against the tree in the park and started to pummel him. As Deku would have looked closely and would have started to realize that he was big now. He was taller, he was stronger, he felt more powerful. As Izuku would have looked around, him seeing a broken shard of glass in the trash can near the park, as he would have looked closer to himself, seeing that he was All Might. As Deku started to freak out, saying, what, this isn't right, what? I'm All Might? As the pink-haired girl would have started to look closely, as the other kids would have started to just run away. As some other adults would have recognized All Might and would start to take pictures thinking it was All Might, but eventually Deku transforming back into Izuku. As people would have started to realize that this kid has a transformation or shape-shifting quirk. As what would happen after that, slowly but surely Inko would have been called, and she would have been called to pick up her son, as Izuku would have been taken to the quirk doctor. And the quirk doctor would have explained to, Inko, Midoriya, that Izuku, Midoriya, her son, was a shapeshifter, his quirk being called morph, as he can morph and shapeshift into any type of person, creature, or just anything that had a heartbeat or that was classified as alive. As Izuku would have been kind of happy by this, saying that Izuku can transform into any type of, inanimate object like a stove or a fridge or like a sword or a weapon, nothing like that. But he can shapeshift into animals, people, and other things such as that. Anything that's alive, a living creature. As, Inko would have been kind of shocked by this because no one in their family ever had any type of shape-shifting or transformation quirk of the sort. But it was interesting because, it's normal. Sometimes it's normal for a new person in the family to have a completely different quirk than what the users of the parents have. As what would happen is Izuku would have been super happy saying he could become a great hero one day, as a quirk doctor would have also said that you could become an amazing hero. As a quirk doctor says that with time, Deku would be able to replicate and mimic people's quirks, making other quirks, as Izuku would have been super happy by this. Him saying I can be strong as All Might, huh? As the quirk doctor would have said, yeah, you can. The quirk doctor would have gotten a little bit more hesitant, him telling Izuku if he can walk out the room for a second, as he would have talked to Inko one-on-one, saying that his powers are unparalleled and they're incredibly strong. If he can mimic any type of quirk on the world, and he can mimic a person just by knowing how they look off of camera, since you're right, since you told me earlier he never met All Might. As the quirk doctor says that Deku doesn't even need a bit of DNA or anything of the sort to transform into somebody. He just needs to see what their quirk looks like and, what they look like and how tall they are. And I guess their son's super obsessed with All Might, right? As Deku would have been really on the internet a lot, searching up All Might, being a huge All Might fan, even going as far as to know exactly how tall All Might is, even knowing his freaking weight on the Wikipedia page, because All Might's weight and height is public knowledge. As Izuku would have known how heavy All Might was and basically his powers. Only thing Deku needs to transform into somebody is how they look on a 360 scale, and also basically their weight and their height. All he needs is those three things and he can transform into them. Now to mimic their quirk, he needs to know what their quirk is and how it works, and then he can transform and mimic their quirk. Without that knowledge, Deku can't mimic a quirk, can't even try, because it would either lead on Deku losing the transformation temporarily or him starting to have a spasm, aka a quirk-induced, a seizure, basically. As it could possibly kill Deku if he tries to mimic someone's quirk without really understanding it to a PP, to a Q, to like a T. As what would happen is Izuku would have been super happy by this. Now Deku will immediately go into training and researching heroes and also animals as well So Deku transforming into heroes. As it would have been kind of easier for Deku to, basically shapeshift into humans, but it would be a lot harder for him to move around because he would be used to a new, bigger body. Like transforming into a grown-up would be really hard for Deku at his age. But Deku could transform into, animals. And animals would be a lot more of a faster transformation because it would be a lot less complex than human anatomy. So what Deku would do is, Deku would have gone straight into researching quirks, heroes, and training his physical body. Now, Deku, over the course of a couple of years, and us doing a time skip, as Deku would learn the limitations of his quirk. Now, what happens, Deku's quirk is limitless. Like, he can transform, and if he knows a person's quirk, he can mimic their quirk as long as he's in the transformation. Deku's transformation lasts as long as he can focus and as long as he's conscious. So if Deku was knocked out, he would lose his transformation. If Deku was given a sight-type quirk, like Eraser, quirk would be erased temporarily. And also, Deku's shapeshifting ability gives him a type of regeneration factor. So Deku can regenerate and heal himself from bodily injuries. It's just, if Deku's whole entire body is completely zapped away, like Endeavor Nomu type stuff, if his entire body is completely evaporated, if none of his brain matter is left or any of his heart is left, those two vital organs are the pieces of where his, genetic code resides in his body. If both of those parts of his body are completely disintegrated or burned away or chopped or taken away from his body, Deku will die. He couldn't regenerate back. So that's basically Deku's limitation. What would happen after that, Deku would also realize that he can hold his transformation for about 5 to 6 hours. After that, if he does more than 5 to 6 hours, Deku will go into a medically or quirk-induced seizure, like I said earlier. Those are the two situations where Deku would have a seizure if he tried to mimic someone's quirk without realizing it or without really knowing how it works. And basically, yeah. So what would happen is, Deku would have gotten more into training. Now, Deku with this transformation would have actually got better with fighting because he couldn't just transform into somebody and obtain their skill of fighting or anything like that. Deku would have to figure out on the fly how to use their body to a T, because it would be new muscle fibers Deku would be moving with, new bodies he would be jumping and moving around with, as it would be easier to transform into characters or people he truly admired and people he truly understood to a T. So Deku would start transforming into, his father, as Deku's father would have visited him and would have been in Deku's life a lot more often. Now what happened is Izuku would have transformed into his father, him transforming it into a younger version of Deku's father, like in high school, as he would have been training with the fire-breathing quirk a lot more. As, identically, or just for plot, Deku's dad, his teenage self, would basically just look like a, more ripped teenage version of Izuku with black hair with green roots instead of black roots and green hair like Deku. Now what happened, Deku would go in the train, as he would have gone to, his middle school, basically just chilling, as he would have befriended a boy named Kacchan. Kacchan being one of his best friends doing, middle school. Not Kacchan, Kirishima. He would have befriended Kirishima, as he would have been one of his best friends. As Kirishima and Deku would have basically just been talking to each other, basically being kind of friends, as in this continuity, a couple of the other UA girls would have gone to their school, aka, Ochaka and Mina would have been at that school, as they would have started to talk to each other, as basically what would happen is kind of the universe would have kind of switched around, as Kirishima and, Ochaku would have actually had a type of, underlying romance for each other, but mainly Ochaku having a huge crush on Kirishima kind of being blindsided and actually not really, being kind of, oblivious to what Ochaku's trying to hint to. After those few years of middle school, eventually, the last day of school would have came, as the teacher would have said that, I already know you guys will all want to be heroes, as he would just thrown the, provisional, I don't know what it's called, career path plans, papers, whatever, as what would happen as they would have just gotten super excited, being pumped, using their quirks in class, as Izuku wouldn't be using his quirk in class, just been sitting there being happy, clapping his hands. As what happened is, well, Deku would have made his way, well, to his house one day. After the last day of school, Deku would have tried to walk away, as he would have also been kind of interrupted by Bakugo still. Bakugo kind of being cut off by Kirishima, as Kirishima would have been friends with both of them actually, but him not really trying to interlock their paths with each other because he knows Bakugo has an underlying hate for Deku for that day he was pummeled by his All Might transformation. Now what happened is Kirishima would have just slightly pushed Deku out of the way, basically just dragging him away, saying to have a great day, Kachan, and I'll meet you up later, okay? As Kirishima and Deku would have left school, walking together, and then basically walking each other home, as Deku would have walked Kirishima home since he lived a little bit closer to the school. Now what happened is Deku and Kirishima would have walked down the alleyway, but them hearing some sort of sludge, well, dripping, as they would have looked back, seeing and being blindsided and, speed blitzed by a huge sludge monster. As Kirishima would have been slid back to a nearby concrete wall in the, alleyway, or not alleyway, but like I guess the sewage area, the underlying bridge, as Kirishima would have been smacked against the wall, as Deku would have been absolutely try to, basically jump by the sludge villain, as he would have decided to collapse into Deku's lungs. But what happened is Deku would have transformed into Endeavor, as he would have started to burn the sludge villain to a crisp. The sludge villain would have tried to retreat, but Deku transforming into a pro hero in America that had the quirk to make bubbles that were as strong as but as strong as bulletproof glass, as he would have isolated the sludge villain, keeping him at bay. Eventually, the real All Might would have shown up. Kachan being super excited by this. Not Kachan, but Kirishima, Jesus. Kirishima being super excited by this, saying, "It's your idol, Deku." As Deku would have said, "Oh my gosh, it's All Might." As we would actually get a flashback of Deku trying to use All Might transformation, as he would have started to have a seizure for the first time, as his mom would have took him to the quirk doctor. As Deku would have been kind of, sad that his idol, his most proclaimed hero he wanted to transform into the most, he didn't understand his quirk enough for him to transform into him. So he needed to know more about All Might, and if he became a pro hero, one day he could transform and become All Might. So what happened is, Deku would have, made his way to All Might, as he would have given All Might a sludge villain, as he would have basically put the sludge villain into a container or a bottle, so he could basically stop using his quirk. As he would give All Might the sludge villain, as All Might would have said, "Good job. You use your power very well." As Deku would have transformed back into himself, as All Might would have understood that it was a kid. It wasn't a pro hero. Now, Deku would have honestly gotten a little bit scolded, but also All Might saying that you did good, kid, and your quirk is very powerful. You become a great hero one day. As Izuku says, "Yeah, but I could transform into anybody I want, right? But I can't transform into you. I need to understand a person's quirk. So, what is your quirk?" As All Might says, "I gotta get this sludge into the police prince. But one day, you might understand. One day, you might figure it out." As he tries to jump off, but Deku basically grabs onto All Might's leg and basically follows him. As All Might lands on a nearby rooftop, and All Might saying, "What, kid, what are you doing?" As he would have landed, basically, like I said earlier, because he was running out of time, as he would have de-transformed into, Small Might. As Deku would have been kind of confused, saying, "What, are you a clone?" As he would have said, "What? I'm not a clone." As he would have said, "Oh, you're fake." As he would have said, "No, I'm not a fake either." As he would have pulled up his shirt saying, "I'm a real All Might. I get injured a long time ago fighting as this very big, powerful villain. Now, ever since, I can't keep my transformations up." As Deku goes on about how, I guess I understand. As he would have started to look closer to the wound, saying maybe I can help. As Deku, over the years, would have found out that he can do a trick. Deku could possibly combine genes that he can shapeshift into and combine and make new quirks with combinations of other quirks. But Deku never tried it. It was only a theory. But he didn't want to try it in that very moment because All Might told him stop. That he needed to go on somewhere, but he needed to find a sludge villain. As he would have about to grab the sludge villain, but he would have realized the sludge villain was gone, as he probably dropped him somewhere. As Deku would have been kind of confused, saying, where did he go? As Deku looks around, but him realizing that he can't really see anywhere, as he tries to figure out where the sludge villain is, but All Might just saying, kid, you don't... as Deku would have pleased, like, straight up begged All Might, what is his quirk? As All Might would have said, I'll tell you later. You have great potential, kid. It's just, you don't want to know. As he runs off, him transforming back into All Might, jumping off the rooftop and trying to find the sludge villain. As Deku would have been kind of distraught and kind of, well, destroyed a little bit. But him trying to figure out more about All Might and what his quirk is so he can become All Might one day to save the world, to save the day. But Deku just going away. As eventually we see that Deku would have found himself in the streets, as he would have realized there was some sort of commotion going on, as he would have looked closely, seen Kacchan. As Kacchan would have been basically, pummeled, as he would have been grabbed by the sludge villain, as he was about to get basically hostagized or killed by the sludge villain. Him being brought up as a hostage to get away from civilians, as what would happen as well, Deku would have jumped in without even a second thought. Deku transforming in front of everybody into a Endeavor, throwing a huge blast of fire towards the sludge villain. As the sludge villain would have tried to dodge out the way, him getting burned down to a crisp, as he would have gone for another blow, but the sludge villain throwing with his sludge a pillar of concrete towards Deku. Deku would have dodged it narrowly, but him getting hit upside the forehead, him getting sent flying into a nearby rock wall, him de-transforming because he got knocked out temporarily. Deku being slapped back into reality after the sludge villain was about to kill Bakugo, as he would have jumped in. No, Bakugo was but him realizing that Bakugo is just a kid, and he literally is his childhood friend. Before that whole day, before that incident with the quirk being manifested in Deku's body. Now what happened is Deku would have jumped in the way, Deku grabbing the sludge villain, pushing him out the way, and basically grabbing Kacchan and throwing him out of the sludge villain. The sludge villain having a little bit of a less grip on Bakugo because he was kind of caught off guard by Deku. But him realizing Deku's quirk is very powerful, but him about to just kill Deku off rip, as he about to basically ram himself inside Deku. Pause! And what happened is Deku would try to fight back, but out of nowhere, a huge gust of wind, basically changing the freaking weather, would have blasted off, pushing the sludge villain back and giving Deku enough time to transform back into Endeavor, burning the sludge villain enough so it would be only a little bit of him left, so they would grab the sludge villain and put him in a container and shipping him off to a high facility, prison. As All Might would have picked up the kid, saying that what you do is very brave, but it was very stupid. As he tells Deku to meet him in the alleyway they first met, as he wants to tell him something about his quirk, as he's kind of earned that right. As he has potential for Izuku. As Deku is walked away to some recovery people, as some pro heroes scold him, but also saying that his quirk is very powerful, and one day he can become a very, very powerful hero. As what would happen is we would see that Deku would have looked away, as All Might would have gotten out there as much as possible, him jumping away. As what would happen is Deku would have gotten checked up, him saying that his power was all good, as the medics would have said he had a regeneration quirk and he was healing as we spoke. As Deku was getting ready, as he would have walked away. As we would see that Deku would have walked away, as he eventually would have found himself in the alleyway, as he would have looked around, him being kind of impatient, but him being stopped by All Might's voice. As All Might would have walked towards Deku, as the sunrise would have been rising, or the sunset would have been setting, as he would have given Deku a chance. I want to give you my quirk. As Deku's kind of shocked by this, saying, what do you mean, your quirk? As Deku is given the chance and being explained how all for one for all works. One for all. A quirk passed down to generation to generation, to hero, as he would learn more about the history of it all. But him being told that he wants him to be All Might's successor, as we get switched to a 9-month art training. Now, Deku would be training his booty off, him getting a pretty good overall type of, training overall, him getting a pretty good training score, and him kind of just surpassing everybody, really. So what happened is Izuku would have been super happy by this, as his body would be a lot more stronger and faster, as Deku honestly didn't really even need to work out. Deku could transform his normal body enough so he can rearrange it. So Deku could basically just grow a six-pack, or just shift the fat out of his body, or just straight up become taller or shorter. As Deku could control and rearrange his normal body on a cellular level, so Deku could basically make his blood, I guess, super dense, or make his bones as hard as titanium, or anything of the sort. So Deku could basically control his base body on a cellular level, but nothing like that on his other transformations, because Deku knows his body more than any other person on the planet. As Deku basically just trains more and more as he becomes more proficient with transforming his base body into multiple different things, like transforming his hand into a bigger hand like Plastic Man, or even making his knuckles visible through his skin so he can become kind of a walking, made out of, brass fisted type person. So he can basically just make brass hands or brass fists out of nowhere. Now, what happened is Deku would have been super happy by his growth on his main quirk, but him being given the quirk of All For One. Deku's power being incredibly powerful, and honestly somewhat in some situation limitless, even with All For One, One For All being Deku, being given to Deku would become even stronger. Near the end of the month, between the month of the training, All Might would have given All Might would have given Deku One For All, as Deku would have been completely and honestly happy by this, as Deku would start to train with One For All. One For All being an incredibly powerful quirk for Deku, as Deku would start to throw wind pressure, gusts of wind, and all sorts of other things, as he would have transformed into All Might's transformation again and again and again. All Might's his quirk became kind of a copy of heroes, as he could copy a person's suits and their basically costumes, but he needed to make himself more unique. He can't just be copying quirks and copying people's suits as well. So what would happen is Deku would have kind of made a mental barrier. Every time Deku transformed into a creature or a person, a yellow suit would appear over that person's body, as it would have been kind of a work in progress, it being kind of just a skin tight Ghibli suit or a skin tight morph suit, kind of like the green screen suits actors or prop managers wear to basically blend into the background of like a scene. So Deku would just start off like that. Deku would have started to train more and more with other of his transformations, as Deku would have realized with One For All, Deku could basically boost the powers of the people he transformed into, but it would take a lot more pressure and strain on Deku's body when he transformed back into his regular form, his base form. As Deku would have realized that he had a lot more potential, as he would have started to train even more and even harder, as eventually the entry exams would have began. As I'm gonna leave it off here, guys. So normally I cover all of this. I cover the entry exam all the way to the whole, training with Ozawa, but I'm gonna be basically covering that and the one-on-one battles with Bakugo and Deku in part 2. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Guys, like and subscribe, and as always, guys, have a blessed day. Deuces.